My name is Elena Morgan. I'm 32 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my little sister Brielle has had a knack for taking things that were never hers to begin with. It started small, a doll I loved when I was 5, which she borrowed and never returned. My favorite scarf in high school that mysteriously vanished from my drawer and reappeared in her Instagram photos. Even the spotlight at family dinners, she always had a louder laugh, a brighter story, a more dramatic entrance. And somehow, my parents never seemed to notice. Or maybe they just didn't care. I used to think I was over it. That being the steady, responsible older sister meant taking the high road, letting it go, focusing on my own life and staying out of her chaos. But nothing could have prepared me for what Brielle took from me last month. It was my birthday, my 32nd, a milestone I had hoped would mark a fresh chapter, maybe a recommitment in my marriage, or at the very least a quiet celebration surrounded by family. We had dinner reservations at Oak and Stone, my favorite place in the city. My parents were there. So was my husband Derek. And so was Brielle. She arrived late as always, in a tight emerald green dress that turned heads the moment she walked in. She was glowing, confident, full of secrets she couldn't wait to spill. What she said that night would shake everyone at the table. But not me. Because what Brielle didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it, planning for it. While she and Derek were sneaking around behind my back thinking I was clueless, I was busy gathering proof, waiting for the perfect time to show them that I wasn't the naive big sister they'd always assumed I was. You see, this birthday dinner wasn't going to end with a song and cake. It was going to end with the truth. And when the truth came out, it wouldn't be just Brielle's fantasy that crumbled. It would be her entire illusion of control. Because for once in our lives, she wasn't the one holding all the cards. I was. Now, before I take you back to that dinner and everything that followed, let me tell you how we got there. Because this story, it's not just about betrayal. It's about patterns, long, ugly, familiar patterns, and what happens when someone finally breaks them. It's about growing up in a family that praised one daughter while barely noticing the other. It's about marrying a man who said all the right things until he didn't. It's about being the one who was always fine, stable, strong until I wasn't. But most of all, it's about what happens when you stop waiting to be saved and start saving yourself. This is the story of how my little sister tried to destroy my life, and how I turned the tables one painful truth at a time. Brielle and I were born exactly 4 years apart, almost to the day. Our birthdays fall in the same week of June, but only one of us ever seemed to be celebrated. From the time we were children, our parents made it clear, though, never outright, that Brielle was the star, the golden child, the one who needed more attention, more praise, more everything. I was the older sister, the dependable one, the helper. My role was to be steady to make room. When Brielle threw tantrums, I was expected to soothe her. When she failed at something, I was told not to brag about my successes. "You're more mature, Elena. Let her have this one," my mother would whisper. It didn't matter what this one was, school plays, party themes, or just the last scoop of ice cream. Brielle always got it. She was beautiful in a wild, captivating way. Big green eyes, curly blonde hair, and a laugh that made people turn their heads. I was quieter, more serious. I liked book structure, privacy. I was the kind of girl teachers liked and classmates overlooked. By the time we were teenagers, Brielle had fully embraced her role as the family's chaotic darling. She flitted from interest to interest, cheerleading one semester, photography the next, while I worked after school and saved for college. She dated older boys. I stayed home and studied. And yet, despite our differences, I still hoped we might grow closer one day, that maybe adulthood would level the playing field. It didn't. After high school, I got a partial scholarship to a small liberal arts college out of state. I majored in communications and business, worked 2 jobs to stay afloat, and graduated early. I didn't date much, but I focused on building a future, something solid, something that couldn't be taken from me. And that's when I met Derek Quinn. Derek was charismatic in a quiet, confident way. He was the guest speaker at a campus networking event, a successful marketing consultant with sharp insight and warm eyes. I stayed behind after the talk to ask a few questions, and we ended up walking out together into the freezing night. He offered to buy me coffee, and I said yes. That cup of coffee turned into dinner the next weekend. Dinner turned into long phone calls and weekend trips when I graduated and moved to the city. Derek made me feel seen in a way no one ever had. He was older by 6 years, already established in his career, and drawn to my ambition. He said he admired my discipline, my focus. He loved that I wasn't like other girls. I fell for him slowly then, all at once. After 2 years of dating, he proposed on the edge of a lake during a spring weekend getaway. It wasn't flashy, just the two of us, a small ring, and a quiet promise of forever. I said yes through tears. We got married the following year. It was a small wedding, intimate, elegant. I wore my mother's earrings. Brielle was my maid of honor. She gave a speech that was more about herself than about us, but I let it go. I had learned to expect that from her. In the beginning, married life felt like a reward. We bought a modest townhouse in a quiet neighborhood. I landed a job at a rising PR firm. Derek continued to climb at his agency. We had routines, Sunday morning pancakes, late night talks, shared gym schedules. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Still, even in those early days, I sensed cracks in the foundation. Derek never really connected with my family. He tolerated holiday dinners and made polite conversation, but he always kept a certain distance, especially with Brielle. I chalked it up to personality differences. She was loud and unpredictable, while he liked control and order. But I should have looked closer. At first, the distance between Derek and me was subtle. He'd stay later at work. He'd forget our Friday takeout plans. He started putting his phone face down on the table. He said he was tired, that work was stressful, that he was just in a slump. I believed him, because I wanted to. I told myself every marriage had ups and downs, that I just needed to be patient, supportive, that the man I married would come back to me when life settled down. Meanwhile, Brielle was bouncing from job to job, boyfriend to boyfriend, still crashing at our parents' house in between. She showed up unannounced to our home more than once, claimed she was just in the neighborhood, borrowed things without asking, commented on my weight, my clothes, my decor. When I asked her not to stop by without warning, she called me controlling. When I mentioned it to my mom, she said, "She's your sister Elena. Just be patient with her. She's going through a lot." So I kept being patient. I kept being the steady one. Until the day I found an email. It was a Friday afternoon. My laptop had crashed before a big presentation and Derek wasn't home, so I opened his. We sometimes shared devices in emergencies. It wasn't a breach of trust, at least not then. But when I opened his inbox, a message popped up. It was from Brielle. The subject line read, "Last night." My hand hovered over the mouse, and in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. That was the beginning of the end, but also strangely the beginning of my beginning. Because what I found in that email would shatter everything I believed about my marriage, my family, and my sister. And instead of confronting them right away, I decided to do something different. I decided to wait, to watch, to collect everything I needed, because this time I wasn't going to let them blindside me. This time, I was going to let them walk right into their own destruction. After that email, I stopped guessing. I stopped hoping it was just a misunderstanding, that the subject line was misleading, that Brielle had sent it to the wrong person. I clicked. The message was short, intimate, disgustingly familiar. Still thinking about last night. I know we said we'd stop, but I can't. Can't stop wanting you. Being with you feels more real than anything I ever had before. Let me know if she suspects anything. No sign-off, no name, but I didn't need one. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. The world didn't end. It didn't explode or crash or burn. Instead, it slowed. I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I breathed. And then I picked up my phone and called a number I had saved months ago, but never thought I'd use Davis & Associates private investigators, discreet, thorough, and expensive. I scheduled a consultation that same week. After that, I stopped living like a wife. I became a strategist. Every conversation with Derek became a test. Every look Brielle gave me a calculation. I became skilled at pretending I knew nothing while noticing everything. It wasn't hard. Derek's lies became lazier. He stopped covering his tracks as well. He started working late 3 times a week, and I pretended to believe him. I stopped initiating intimacy, and he didn't notice. I gave him space, and in that space, he grew comfortable, careless. Brielle, too, slipped up in her own way. She started texting me more often about family dinners, silly memes, passive-aggressive compliments. She made a point to check in on me, always just wondering how Derek and I were doing. At one point, she suggested a weekend spa getaway for just us girls. I nearly laughed in her face. Meanwhile, the investigator I'd hired delivered weekly updates. Derek's car was parked outside Brielle's apartment on multiple evenings. They were seen entering hotels always separately, always within minutes of each other. Phone records, receipts, time-stamped surveillance. The case was clear. They were not just having an affair. They were reckless with it. And yet, I didn't confront them. I met with a divorce attorney instead, Patricia Vaughn, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, with sharp cheekbones and sharper legal instincts. I brought her everything. She didn't flinch once. "We'll handle this with precision," she told me. But we wait. You don't strike until you've got everything locked down. So I waited. For 2 months, I documented everything. I quietly removed my name from joint liabilities, opened a separate bank account, secured digital copies of all financial documents. I began moving small belongings out of the house under the guise of spring cleaning. I wasn't preparing to leave. I was preparing to be free. I knew my moment would come. I just didn't expect it would arrive so perfectly. My 32nd birthday. My mother insisted on organizing a dinner at Saffron and Stone, a modern bistro with dim lighting and overpriced wine. I agreed without hesitation. I requested the guest list immediate family only. Brielle included. Derek, of course. It felt theatrical, almost cinematic. But I wasn't planning a scene. I was planning a conclusion. The week before the dinner, I received one final report from the investigator. Photos of Derek leaving a jewelry store with a small wrapped box. Texts from Brielle asking if she'll like it or if it was too much for now. A receipt for a dinner reservation, ironically, at the same restaurant we'd be dining at soon. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Instead, I picked out a blue dress, the same one Derek once said, made me look like someone who couldn't be ignored. I had it tailored to fit perfectly. I had my hair done professionally that morning. And I put the final document in my purse, a folded paper with a hospital letterhead and Derek's name on it. It wasn't from now. It was from 2 years ago. It confirmed a vasectomy. I remembered the conversation clearly. I hadn't wanted to give up the idea of children yet, but Derek had insisted. "We've got so much going for us," he said at the time. "Why complicate things?" He was gentle but firm, and I, like always, had agreed, trying to be the reasonable one. Now that document was going to end this all. Not with a fight, with facts. I didn't care who saw, who gasped, who spilled their wine. This wasn't revenge with yelling. This was revenge with receipts. The night of the dinner, I arrived on time. My parents were already seated. They greeted me with the usual detached warmth. My mother commented on my lipstick. My father handed me a card with a generic birthday message. Then Derek walked in alone, late. He kissed my cheek, avoided my eyes, and sat beside me. "I had to stop by the office," he muttered. "Of course," I said sweetly. "You're always working hard." My mother smiled approvingly. We ordered wine, appetizers. Then Brielle appeared. She made an entrance, tight red dress, glowing skin hand casually resting on her stomach. She was radiant, smug, and 15 minutes late. She leaned down to kiss my cheek just like always. And just like always, her scent was overpowering her touch, too rehearsed. "Happy birthday, big sis," she said. "Thank you," I replied. "You look lively." She laughed, taking the seat beside Derek across from me. Too close, too casual. Dinner was polite, tense. Brielle dominated the conversation with stories of work and celebrity encounters. Derek barely spoke. I smiled, sipped my wine, and waited. Until the dessert arrived. The waiter placed a slice of pistachio cake, my favorite, before me, candlelit, ready for the traditional song. That's when Brielle cleared her throat. "Actually," she said, placing her hand dramatically over her stomach before we sing, "I have a little announcement." Everyone turned. "I'm pregnant." Gasps, clapping. My mother covered her mouth with joy, but then Brielle smiled wider. And Derek is the father. Silence, heavy, tangled, complete. Everyone looked at me, but I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I reached into my purse, unfolded the paper, and placed it gently in the center of the table. I wouldn't be so sure, I said calmly. And then I leaned back, took another sip of wine, and watched as the cracks began to show. Because revenge doesn't always come in screams. Sometimes it comes in facts. And in that moment, the truth spoke louder than any betrayal ever could. The silence that followed my quiet declaration was the kind that seemed to suck the air out of the room. All around us, cutlery paused in midair, glasses froze halfway to lips, and conversations at nearby tables dimmed to background noise. Derek's eyes darted to the paper on the table. He didn't reach for it. He didn't even blink. Brielle, on the other hand, let out a forced laugh, one that sounded more like a dry cough than actual amusement. "What's this supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice just a touch too high. "I'd read it," I said calmly, before making any more public announcements about paternity. My father leaned forward, squinting at the paper. He adjusted his reading glasses, picked it up slowly, and read silently. Is this real?" he asked, voice faltering. "It's very real," I said. My mother reached for the paper next to, hands trembling. Her eyes skimmed the lines, and I watched the moment her features collapsed. 2 years ago, she whispered, eyes wide. "Derek had a vasectomy?" Derek cleared his throat, finally speaking. "Elena, this is really not the time or place for—" "Not the time," I interrupted, setting my glass down. "You mean not the time to correct a lie you were perfectly content to let hang in the air at my birthday dinner in front of my family." Brielle's mouth opened, then shut. Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach again, as if that gesture alone could change the truth. "You're lying," she said, but the words lacked conviction. "This is some kind of a fake." "Is it?" I tilted my head. "Why don't you ask Derek?" "He should remember the day. He spent it on the couch in sweatpants with a bag of frozen peas between his legs. March Madness was on. We had a whole conversation about not wanting kids. Remember that Derek looked down at the table, shame etched into every line of his face. "Say something," Brielle hissed at him. "I didn't know you'd get pregnant," he muttered. "Didn't know," she repeated, stunned. "You knew you'd had the procedure. You told me you wanted a family, that you were just scared to tell Elena." "Stop pretending this wasn't mutual," Derek snapped, finally lifting his gaze. "You pursued me. And you didn't stop it," I added. "You let it happen. And then you let me walk around for months trying to fix something that had already been broken behind my back." My father set the paper down and pushed his chair back. "I can't be here for this," he muttered. "Sit," my mother whispered. "We're not done." I looked around the table. My cake was untouched, candle still flickering. Brielle's eyes were shiny, but she hadn't cried yet. She wasn't the crying type, more the flailing, denying, blame-shifting kind. "You think I didn't know," I said, voice low but clear. "You think I didn't see the late nights, the vague answers, the way you both avoided being in the same room with me." Derek started hiding his phone like a teenager. "You wore his cologne by accident once, Brielle. I noticed everything." I just waited for what? Brielle shot back, her voice rising. "For a public shaming." "No," I said, leaning forward slightly. "I waited until I had proof, until the betrayal was undeniable, until I had already met with a lawyer, until all our financial accounts were protected, until I was ready." I reached into my bag again and pulled out another envelope, this one thicker. "Derek," I said, sliding it across the table. "This is for you. My attorney will be in contact on Monday. We're done." His mouth fell open. "Elena." "No," I said. "You don't get to speak anymore. You don't get to plead, explain, or blame your way out of this. You made your decisions, so did I." Brielle looked between us, panic creeping into her eyes. "This doesn't change anything," she said quickly. "The baby, he's still yours, Derek. Vasectomies fail sometimes, don't they?" "It happens. It could still be Brielle," I interrupted. "Don't embarrass yourself." The way her face crumpled then just slightly told me everything I needed to know. You knew I said, you suspected. Maybe you even knew all along it wasn't his. But you thought if you said it loud enough, often enough, we'd all believe it. You thought if you made your announcement at my birthday dinner, it would take the power away from me. You thought you were stealing my life, but all you did was walk into a truth that was already waiting for you. Tears finally welled in her eyes. You always think you're better than me. I never said that, I said softly, but I was always trying to be good, while you were trying to be first. The silence returned thicker this time, heavier. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again. For once, she didn't know what to say. I should go, Derek said, standing up. No, I replied. You should sit and listen for once. He hesitated, then sat back down. I'm not angry. Because you cheated, I said. That part hurts, yes, but it's not the deepest wound. I'm angry because I made room for both of you in my life for years. I defended you, Brielle, even when I shouldn't have. I gave you space. I forgave your childish selfishness, your digs, your envy, your drama. And you used that space to build a lie. Together. The candle on my cake finally flickered out. How poetic, I said, looking at it. Guess that's what happens when you wait too long to make a wish. I stood. I'm done. Where are you going? My father asked. Tien. Home, I said. To pack. I've already signed the lease on my new place. Movers come next week. Derek, don't bother contacting me. Talk to my lawyer. And Brielle. She looked up hopeful. Good luck figuring out who the father is. The blood drained from her face. As I turned to leave, I noticed how quiet the restaurant had become. Diners at surrounding tables had paused, eyes pretending not to watch, ears straining to hear. Let them. This wasn't just a family drama, it was liberation. By the time I reached the exit, I didn't look back. Not once. Let them sit in the truth. Let them taste the consequences. Let them stew in the birthday dinner they ruined. I was done pretending, done hoping, done holding space for people who never earned it. This wasn't revenge, this was release. And it was long overdue. The next morning, I woke in a sterile hotel room, white walls, stiff sheets, and the too cold hum of air conditioning. It wasn't home, but it was quiet, safe. I stared at the ceiling for a long time before sitting up. My phone blinked with notifications. 24 missed calls, 11 voicemails, half from Derek, half from Brielle, one from my mother. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I opened my messages and texted Ava Sinclair, my attorney. It's time, let's file everything. She replied within 5 minutes. Come to the office at noon. Bring your ID and any last financial statements. I closed the phone, placed it face down, and sat in silence again. This was the quiet after the storm, deceptively still, but brimming with realization. The night before hadn't broken me. It had exposed everything. I wasn't heartbroken. I was hollow. But beneath that, something faint stirred relief. I didn't have to wonder anymore. Didn't have to perform apologized chase. By noon, I was sitting in Ava's sleek, sunlit office, signing a stack of papers that would untangle me from the life I thought I wanted. As I pressed pen to page, I wasn't thinking about the wedding photos or the anniversary trips. I was thinking about the woman I had been, quiet, careful, self-sacrificing. That version of me was gone. Ava slid over the final sheet. This, she said, is your official notice of intent to dissolve the marriage. Once Derek signs, it's on the record. You've already provided enough grounds for a fault-based case. He doesn't stand a chance contesting it. I nodded. Good. By that afternoon, I was back at our know-his house, accompanied by a moving crew and 2 friends who weren't shocked when I said I needed help leaving. I packed with ruthless clarity. My clothes, my books, my grandmother's tea set. I left behind the wedding china, the framed honeymoon photos, the sofa we picked together. I left behind memories that were no longer mine. On our nightstand, I left Derek's wedding ring in a small velvet box. I placed it next to a note: Patricia will contact you. There's nothing more to say. When I stepped out of the house for the last time, I didn't look back. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in a part of the city I had always loved, but Derek had dismissed as too noisy. The floors creaked slightly. The walls weren't perfectly painted, but it was mine. Free of secrets, free of shadows. The messages kept coming. Derek's turned from apologetic to bitter. "You didn't even give me a chance," he wrote. "You froze the account's real mature Elena." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Ava. Then came Brielle's texts. The first one was panicked. "Please call me." Then came the second. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Finally, a third. "He's not the father." That stopped me cold. Not that I was surprised. But the confirmation hit with a strange finality. Her lie hadn't even survived a week. I ignored her for another 2 days. On Friday, she showed up outside my building. No makeup, sunglasses, pale. "I'm not going away," she said when I stepped outside. "You might hate me, but I need to explain." I didn't invite her in. We sat on the front steps. I told him, she said quietly. "The other guy. The one I think is the father." "Is he married?" I asked. She nodded. "He wants nothing to do with me. He threatened to tell his wife that I was lying, said he'd deny everything." I sighed. "And Derek?" "He blocked me. After the dinner, he wouldn't return my calls. I showed up at his office. He told security I was harassing him. I didn't even flinch." Brielle wiped her face with a crumpled tissue. "I ruined everything, and I deserve it, but I didn't know how to stop. I wanted what you had." "You never even knew what I had," I said. "You saw the surface and thought that was love." She shook her head. "It was more than that. You were always the one who got it right. The one who stayed calm. The one everyone compared me to. I hated it, and I hated how easy it looked for you." "It wasn't easy," I replied. "I just learned how to survive without expecting anyone to protect me, including you." Her shoulders slumped. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I don't know how to do this alone." For the first time in weeks, I softened. Not because she deserved it, but because I needed to stop carrying the anger like armor. "You're not doing this alone," I said. "You're doing it with yourself. And if that's hard, maybe it's time you finally learn how to stand without leaning on the people you betray." She nodded slowly, and I left her there on the steps alone, but no longer chasing my forgiveness. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. Derek signed the divorce papers without protest. Ava finalized everything by the end of the month. Brielle's pregnancy progressed. My mother tried unsuccessfully to get me to attend family dinners. "She needs your support," she pleaded. "She needed my support before she slept with my husband," I replied. "Now she needs boundaries." Dad, to his credit, was more understanding. "We failed both of you," he said once, "by making you her caretaker. You deserve to be the daughter, not the protector." I didn't respond. Some truths don't need confirmation. I focused on my work. I jogged at 6 a.m., made new playlists, repainted the living room in deep forest green. Slowly, I reclaimed myself. And then one Sunday morning, Brielle texted again. "He left her," she wrote. "He's with me now." I almost laughed. Not from humor, but disbelief. The married man had chosen her. A week later, she gave birth to a baby boy, Leo. My mother called that night. "He has your father's eyes," she said. Would you consider meeting him?" I hesitated, then finally said, "I'll think about it." Because healing isn't a straight line. And sometimes the right boundary is flexible, not for them, but for you. One day I drove to the hospital. I held Leo in my arms, unsure how I felt. He looked peaceful, unaware, innocent. Brielle sat beside me in silence. "I want him to have better," she said. "I want to break this pattern. I don't want him to grow up seeing women betray each other." I looked at her, then at the baby. I saw something raw in her. Regret, maybe. "I'll be his godmother," I said quietly. "But that doesn't mean we're okay." "I know," she replied. We stayed like that for a while. Not sisters, not enemies, just something in between. That was enough. Months passed. The air shifted. Not just outside where summer gave way to the golden quiet of fall, but inside me. I no longer flinched when my phone buzzed. I stopped scanning crowds for Derek's face. The anger I'd worn like armor had become too heavy, and one morning I realized I didn't need it anymore. The apartment I once called temporary had become a home. I painted the bedroom a pale ocean blue, hung art I actually liked, cooked for myself without asking, would Derek eat this? Freedom felt strange at first, like a silence I wasn't used to, but soon I realized it wasn't silence. It was peace. Work thrived. My agency promoted me to lead strategist, a role I'd once been passed over for, in favor of someone with more family flexibility. I poured myself into new campaigns, mentored younger women on the team, and in between pitch decks and branding sessions, something unexpected began to form. Julian. He'd been in our creative department for years, kind, observant, soft-spoken. During the chaos of my unraveling, he had left simple things on my desk, a warm latte, a note that said, "It won't always feel this sharp." At first I brushed it off. I wasn't ready. But healing has a way of sneaking up on you. One day he invited me to a gallery opening. I said yes. Then dinner, then a walk by the river. We didn't talk about exes or betrayal or pain. We talked about music and books, about family, not the one we were born into, but the ones we choose. With Julian, I never felt I had to perform. I didn't need to prove anything. I could be tired, messy, quiet, and still feel seen. We took things slow, not because of fear, but because I had finally learned how to be alone without being lonely. And that was power. Meanwhile, Brielle's life had adjusted. She was raising Leo with the married man Richard, who had eventually left his wife. I didn't ask for details, only what I needed to know as Leo's godmother. Brielle and I weren't close, but we weren't broken anymore. There were boundaries now, lines neither of us dared cross. She had begun therapy, she told me once nervously. I'm trying to figure out why I needed to take everything you had to feel like I mattered. I didn't offer her comfort, but I offered her this. I hope you find the answer. Not for me, for Leo. That was enough. My parents had shifted too. There were apologies, imperfect, halting ones from my father. I thought by making you the strong one, we were helping you, he said. But we just made it easier to forget you needed help too. I didn't need them to be perfect. I just needed them to see me. And slowly they started to. On my 33rd birthday, I hosted a small dinner, just a few close friends. A cake I baked myself. Soft music, dim lights, laughter. Julian was there standing in the kitchen slicing lemons for drinks. Brielle sent flowers. No note, just lilies and a single yellow rose. I placed them on the windowsill. And when my guests raised their glasses and said to Elena I didn't cry, I smiled because I was no longer waiting for my life to start. I was in it, fully. Later that night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine. The city lights glowed, but I didn't feel small anymore. I opened a new leather journal, a gift from Julian. Inside, he'd written a quote, "The most beautiful people are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths." I let the words sink in because I had known betrayal. I had known the hollow ache of watching your world collapse. I had watched my sister take what was mine again and again and waited for someone to stop her until I realized that someone had to be me. The revenge I delivered wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, it wasn't dramatic. It was truth. Spoken calmly, laid bare in front of those who never expected me to rise. It was liberation from a marriage built on performance, from a family dynamic that defined me by how much I could carry, from the version of me who thought quietness was the same as peace. But most importantly, it was clarity. I didn't need to make anyone hurt to heal. I didn't need to destroy to rebuild. I just needed to walk away from what wasn't mine to fix. And I did. Now, when I think about the woman I was, the one sitting at her birthday dinner smiling through betrayal, I don't see weakness. I see strength disguised as restraint, power cloaked in stillness. That woman planted the seeds of everything I am now, and I honor her. So if you're reading this, if you've ever felt the weight of someone else's choices resting on your shoulders, let it fall. Walk away. Not in anger, not in spite, but in truth and freedom. Because revenge doesn't always have to be destruction. Sometimes it's just becoming someone they can never break again.